Welcome back, everyone. My name is Michelle, and this is horror book Hell Hounds. So today we are going to be talking about a subject that I absolutely love, my favorite werewolf horror movies. So, I'm only going to talk to you guys about my top three, coincidentally, favorite werewolf movies of all time. Now, admittedly, I have not seen every single werewolf movie that's out there. I'm not trying to claim that I have. These are just the top three favorites of mine that I've seen so far, one of which is pretty much brand new. So let's get started. Coming in at number 3 is Silver Bullet. So Silver Bullet is a film adaptation from a Stephen King story that I believe is called Cycle of the Werewolf. The movie was filmed in 1985. It stars some very well-known faces, so I'm not going to go through all of them. I'll try to post pictures here and there. But let's just say it had an all-star cast, in my opinion. Uncle Red, top tier acting. So I'm going to read you the synopsis from imdb.com, so just bear with me if I'm looking down a lot, all right? Okay, it says, when a series of unexplained murders occurs in the normally quiet town of Tarker's Mill, the residents decide to hunt down the killer. However, many of these vigilantes end up dead, and those who don't are no closer to finding the assailant. But when a young wheelchair-using boy named Marty encounters a werewolf one night, the pieces begin to come together. Along with his sister and uncle, Marty begins a mission to stop the werewolf once and for all. So this movie was actually one of the very first werewolf films that I saw growing up. This is takes me back. There's definitely a nostalgic kind of love that I have for this film. The reason I love this film so much is because it juxtaposes so beautifully the whole point of having monster legends, right? So the werewolf legend is always kind of used in this anecdotal or metaphorical way to kind of describe and portray the very violent nature of man. Right? So I think that there's a lot of psychological reasoning behind different monster legends, and the werewolf is so symbolic because you literally have a human being transforming into a beast where they have no control over themselves. They are driven by bloodlust and hell-bent on killing and usually eating anyone they can get their claws on. So this film does it so very wonderfully. I enjoyed it very much. There's also almost like a good versus evil battle going on within the person who ends up being the werewolf, which I'm not going to tell you exactly who the werewolf ends up being because most of you, if you've seen the movie, you already know what I'm talking about, and if you haven't, it's not so much that it's a shock per se, because you do find out about halfway through the film, but you do kind of see what I mean as far as just, really? Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of questions that remain unanswered as far as how did the werewolf get to be a werewolf in this film. But the story itself has some very spooky moments, some very creepy scenes, and the physical transformation scenes are pretty interesting. They're not my favorite, which we'll get to my favorite ones in just a second, but it was very interesting, very kind of classic werewolf iconography. I don't even know if that's the right word I'm using. Needless to say, with this being a film from 1985, it utilizes a lot of very beautiful practical effects as far as the transformation process and the gore scenes and different things like that. And so I always love practical effects over CGI. And honestly, the next film we're going to talk about has a beautiful marriage and union of the two. So coming in at number 2 of my all-time favorite werewolf movies, we have The Cursed. Now, this film came out last year. Actually, was it this year? Was it this year? Shit, I already forgot. I really thought it came out in 2021, but now that I think about it, it did come out this year because it came out earlier this year and it is now on DVD. Holy shit. Anyway, so yes, If you haven't heard of The Cursed yet, I don't know like where you live or why you've chosen to live under a rock, but it's amazing. It is amazing. So let me give you the little synopsis real quick, and then we'll dive into why I love this movie so much and how it came to be at the top of my list. In 19th century France, a man arrives in a remote country village to investigate an attack by a wild animal. However, he soon discovers a much deeper and sinister force that has the main manor and townspeople in its grip. So I'm just going to put it out there. There is a very prominent moment in this movie where our leading protagonist mentions the Beast of Gévaudan. And I had an entire geek out meltdown in the movie theater sitting next to my boyfriend when that scene came up. Because if you know anything, like if you've ever heard of the Beast of Gévaudan, you know that it's a very historical case. It happened, I believe, back in the 1800s in France. This is a real life case. So the simple fact that they created this fictional story that had a direct tie and honestly a very logical link to the real life case of the Beast of Gévaudan, I like freaked out in the theater. I was like jumping up and down in my seat. I am like a huge nerd when it comes to cryptozoology, especially the legend of the werewolf, because I mean, I'm kind of obsessed with wolves. Long story. Now, as far as talking about the film itself, this film has some of the most beautiful cinematography and atmosphere building that I've seen in a very long time. To be fair and to be completely honest, I really thought that we were in Britain or, you know, like England in the film because none of the actors really had a French accent. At least I didn't really notice it. So I was a little confused when they were suddenly like in France and they had a correlation to the other case in France. I was just kind of sitting here like, wait, we're in France? I was a little thrown by that just because most of the actors sound very British or they sound American even, like old world American, which I guess would be English. Huh. Another reason I loved this film so much is that it gives a very fresh perspective and a new look on the curse and almost a plague of the werewolf. And it almost portrays it as more of like this parasitic organism or a disease that infects the body and physically mutates almost around the body. Just the way that the curse of the werewolf was visually shown was so intriguing. It was very interesting and it was so disturbing. Like this movie really got under my skin like in a very creepy, disturbing way, because as you all know by now, I don't do parasites, all right? I don't know. No. So the fact that this curse and this like disease or parasite like kind of like gets inside of these people and then cocoons around them and turns into this beast, which looked stunning. I don't care who you are. This beast, the werewolf itself, was stunning. And this is what I'm talking about with having that beautiful union of practical effects and CGI. I feel like so many movies nowadays rely solely on CGI that we're not seeing those awesome close-up scenes, you know, where you can almost see the texture and feel the texture of the skin and just, you know, I don't think I'm explaining this in a way that doesn't sound crazy, but I love practical effects for horror movies. I love them. I usually hate horror films that don't have any practical effects because it really bugs me. I don't know what it is. I feel like practical effects, especially in horror movies, raise the bar a little bit. They raise it up to that level of believability. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's just the fact that I don't want to let it go. I don't want to let those monsters go. I want the monsters to actually be somewhat real. So the fact that they did utilize those beautiful practical effects along with having really decent CGI was beautiful. I loved it. Mwah. 5 stars, 10 out of 10, whatever you want to say. This movie had everything I wanted. Okay, guys. As you may have guessed, our number one all-time favorite werewolf horror movie is An American Werewolf in London. Now, if you follow me on any social media, I don't think I've actually ever posted this tattoo on Instagram, but I do actually have a tattoo of the werewolf from An American Werewolf in London. But yeah, this is and will forever be my all-time favorite werewolf movie. The Cursed did give it a run for its money, but the reason this film will always be my favorite is because it paved the way so well for the development of just a future for monster movies in general, but also specifically werewolf movies. The practical effects, I know I keep ranting and raving about them, but they were amazing. They were such a leap forward in that time frame. By the way, An American Werewolf in London was originally released, I believe, in 1981. So it's in like the very beginning of the 80s cheese, right? And I'm not going to be too hard about the 80s cheese because I love 80s horror films. The slashers, the cheesiness, I love all of it. But this film had a little bit of camp. It had a little bit of humor, but it also had so much more. Like, there was some really smart directing decisions in this film. You didn't see a lot of the monster at first. There was the initial transformation that was absolutely gut-wrenching. The practical effects made it, and just the way it was filmed, the sequence of the transformation made it feel painful. Like, you actually feel bad for our lead person, whose name is David in the movie. So real quick, if you haven't ever seen this movie, I'm going to read you the synopsis. David and Jack, 2 American college students, are backpacking through Britain when a large wolf attacks them. David survives with a bite, but Jack is brutally killed. As David heals in the hospital, he's plagued by violent nightmares of his mutilated friend, who warns David that he is becoming a werewolf. When David discovers the horrible truth, he contemplates committing suicide before the next full moon causes him to transform from man to murderous beast. Now, I don't know if this film is the first ever instance of, filming an entire sequence of the transformation in like one fell swoop in film, but it did such a fucking good job, especially in the face scene. If you know what I'm talking about, I'll try to put a picture somewhere up here so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about, but it was one of the best scenes that have been captured in film of just getting those practical effects to really look real. Like, they looked pretty damn stunning for that time frame. I'm just gonna say it. And yes, this is me absolutely geeking out about the movie, but it was so good. Now, taking it back to the comment I made a minute ago about having those smart directing choices, I gotta talk about the subway scene. If you've seen this movie, then you know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. The fact that we had an entire scene transition from our victim to the eyes of our werewolf, and we are literally watching this creature stalk this victim without ever seeing the creature. Up until like the end, you get a little blip, but then you see the horror, the absolute horror on that man's face because he knows he's about to be eaten. Which, can I just say that a lot of these people in these horror movies do not put up a big enough fight? Like, you're about to be eaten alive. You couldn't run faster. You couldn't pick your ass up and keep going. I mean, even if you still got eaten, at least you tried. A lot of these people just lay down and give up, and I don't understand that. Now, I will admit, these are all just my favorite horror movies, so if you hate them, if you don't like them, feel free to tell me why in the comments down below. Just don't be a dick, because I really delete dickish comments, because it's just like, that's uncalled for. You're allowed to hate movies, I'm allowed to love movies, and hate other movies. We're allowed to have our own opinions, just don't be a dick about mine, alright? Good. But yes, An American Werewolf in London will always and forever be my favorite. The Cursed did definitely give it a run for its money. It's probably my favorite modern day horror film, at least for this year so far, just because it was so interesting and it really got me. It really fucking got me when it comes to just being a little more innovative and creative with like tying historical fact into this beautiful fictional piece. So all of these movies are in my top 3. Silver Bullet will always be at least in my top 5 because of the nostalgia aspect. I really feel like that was my first movie I ever watched that had anything to do with werewolves, but I can't even remember. I've seen so many since then. So yes, those are my top 3 favorite werewolf movies. What are y'all's favorite werewolf movies? I'll even take it a step further. What's your favorite monster movies in general? That can include any kind of cryptid or vampire or what have you. What movies that include monsters really get you going? I want to know. List them down below. If you have any ideas for upcoming videos that you would like to see or get my opinions on, also leave those down in the comments below. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to hit that like button because it really helps me out. And subscribe if you haven't already. You can go follow me on Instagram and Goodreads. I will link those down below as well. Other than that, I hope you all are being safe out there and enjoying life. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, Hell Hounds.